Hey there, this is Marisa with Marisa Moments Podcast, Healing While I Heal, where I share real life stories and their divine healing translations. So let's just get straight into it. Let's talk about my pregnancy story. Well, more so my delivery story, because my pregnancy, although quite eventful, it wasn't quite as eventful as the grand stage, the finale, if you will, right? Now, as a side note, during my pregnancy with my twins, I struggled, right? It took me months before I could actually even put on weight because the twins were taking so many nutrients from me. They needed so much in order to grow that I just wasn't able to keep up. And I was sick and all these different types of things, right? Now, pregnancy is a dream. Anyway, let's focus. So I'm about 34 weeks pregnant at this point. And miserable. I mean, I'm going to put a picture in there if I can find it of how I was looking at this point. My stomach was hanging. I had to wear a support belt in order to keep it up. Sometimes my husband would even hold it up, or I would just physically hold it up with my hands, because literally carrying two babies through thin layers of skin and flesh and muscle and all that type of stuff is a lot, especially for someone who's about 5 feet 5'1", you know. Anywho, so 34 weeks pregnant, and I've been having contractions for weeks now. They weren't horrible. I could still function. 2 kids outside of the 2 kids that were inside, I had no choice, right? The life goes on, and life, you know, we got to keep it pushing. Anywho, the contractions are starting to get bad, but then I notice there's an additional pain that starts to kick in. And I'm like, okay, I can deal with contractions, but I can't deal with 2 pains together at this point. So I tell my husband, I think we need to go to the hospital, get this checked out. We go in, a little bit of a fast forward. They don't believe that I'm in labor, even though I'm clearly having contractions, right? There's no bitterness there, right? Based off of my voice change, right? But I go through 2 days of tests before they actually verify, yes, Mrs. Ikpo, you are in labor. And I was like, oh, thank you, Captain Obvious, flying in to the rescue, right? Anywho, I digress. So I'm in labor and dilating and all the fun things. And fun fact, when you're having twins, at least in the States or in my state currently, they automatically have you deliver in the operating room, just in case something goes wrong, just in case something happens, right? So I'm in the operating room and I deliver the twins naturally. Now, first, as a funny side note, I had Cassandra first. And they kept saying, she's stuck behind your pelvis, your pelvic bone. Push her around your pelvic bone. Now, if you've ever had kids and somebody's come at you talking about push around your pelvic bone, like, what the heck? You know, like, what the heck? What am I supposed to do? I didn't know. Like, am I supposed to map her out there? Am I supposed to wiggle my hips? Like, I don't know. How the hell do you push a baby around your pelvic bone? So anyway, I'm just pushing and I'm figuring, you know what? It's going to figure itself out. And obviously it did. So she comes out, and then 5 minutes later, Raquel comes out the same route, right? And then something happens. Something weird happens. I start to get a little tired. Of course, they already have taken the babies to the side. My husband is with them, as we had already talked about previously. And they're making sure that they're all good, right? And there's no baby swaps going to be happening around here, so stick with my babies, right? So then I noticed that there's a bit of a panic and a bit of a rush. I'm starting to get cold. I'm starting to feel like just disconnected, right? I feel like I want to go to sleep. And then that's when things start to really get hectic and chaotic. The next thing I remember is a nurse leaning from the end of the bed, basically from between my legs, not to be too graphic, and says, Mrs. Ikpo, we have to do an emergency hysterectomy because we can't stop the bleeding. Now, in this moment right now, just as a side note, it definitely makes me feel emotional recapping these experiences, because it was very emotional, right? But this is healing. So she tells me that, and the only thing I can do is nod at this point, because I'm so weak. I can't even really think straight. Right. And then I look over to the side and I see my husband, who's smiling. He's so happy, and he's with the twins, and he's so proud and just in love. And the only thing I can do is think to myself, I love you. Because in my mind, I knew I was about to die. And so then he goes off with the babies. He has no idea of what's going on. And honestly, you know what? Let's backtrack on the timeline a little bit, because at this point, they hadn't even realized that they needed to do the surgery yet. They were just figuring out that I was starting to hemorrhage out of control. So once he was gone, that's when the surgery took place. Now, funny enough, when they start to do prep for the surgery, the operating room floods with people. And all of a sudden, I feel this fire shooting through my arm. And at the same time, somebody's trying to put a mask over my face. And the only thing I can do is muster up my energy and tell them to stop. And I'm trying to express the fact that my arm is on fire. And then, of course, they catch on to my facial expressions. And I guess they even heard me. I don't know if I was screaming or if I was whispering at this point, because I felt so weak. But one person says, "Oh, Mrs. Iqbal, I'm so sorry. Yes, it's going to burn in your arm because you're losing blood so rapidly. We have to force it through quickly in order to replace it as quickly as we possibly can." Now, another side note, at this point, I had already lost about the equivalent of at least 2 liters to 3 liters of blood. That I lost about 2 liters before they recognized that I was hemorrhaging to this extent, right? And then on the other side, with the mask, the gentleman can realize that I'm getting frustrated, because I feel like they're trying to suffocate me, right? And I'm trying to live. I just had 2 additional babies, and I have 2 other children at home. I have 4 children now and a husband. I need to live. I need to survive. So then he says, "We have to put this mask on you. You need oxygen to breathe. We need to help you, and we're putting you to sleep so that way we can do this surgery." Again, he tries to put the mask on me, and again, I protest. Now, at this point, I'm kind of delirious. I'm in and out, and just still trying to hang on and survive. Now, the next thing I remember is waking up in a room. It was an all-white room, of course. I don't know if I could say of course. My husband was sitting off to the corner with his hoodie on, his hood over his head, looking into his phone, messaging with people feverishly. I wake up. I can feel something down my throat. I don't even really, I know where I am, but I don't know where I am. A nurse comes up to me. She takes the tubing out of my throat, and I start to cough a little bit. I can't really talk. My voice and my throat is very scratchy. And so some way, somehow, again, she recognizes that my lips are dry. I mean, I can't make this stuff up, guys. Like, who thinks about coming out of surgery that their lips are dry? Well, me, that's who does. Me, that's who. So she asks if I want some chapstick. And I somehow motion back to her, hell yes, give me some chapstick. So she goes to put it on. Oops, sorry. I'm doing laundry at the same time as I'm telling the story, because we're having real life while we're talking about real life stories, right? But anyway, so she gives me the chapstick, and all the leaves are brown and the sky is gray, right? Everything is coming together. Now let's fast forward again. I'm transferred into a different room. Now, as another side note, they had already informed my husband previously that they thought they were going to have to put me in a forced medically induced coma in order for me to heal internally. Now, let me tell you about God, Gaia, universe, ancestors, angels, and strength. Now, that's a Freudian slip. Angels and saints, and my own strength They thought they were going to have to put me in a medically induced coma because that's how much trauma my body had experienced. And just weeks prior, someone else had passed away from it. Now, this isn't a brag. This is just a speaking on my truth, right? Because this is real life and this is my real life story. So the thing of it is, I start waking up almost immediately. So they went from coma to recover. Then I'm transferred into the room on the maternity floor. Now, obviously, maybe not obviously, but I don't have my babies with me at this point because they're in the NICU, in the neonatal intensive care unit, because they were born early, so they have to be under constant monitoring and all of these different things. And I had just went through so much trauma. My entire stomach had been sliced open and stapled. I think I had about 25 to 30 staples in total. I did count before, but I don't remember. At this point, I can't even walk. I can't walk. I can't stand. I can barely move. My entire body was swollen from head to toe. Now, yes, I do have pictures of this. It's hard to tell if you don't know me, but I was definitely swollen. Let's think Nutty Professor Clumps type swollen, right? Anyway, after a while, I'm able to finally go see my babies for the first time. Now, this was maybe, I don't know, about 10, 12 hours after they had already been born. My husband and I go to the NICU. He actually waited for me to go visit them again after he had been realized what happened to me. So we go over there, and I'm just, honestly, I'm riding this high of life. The reality hasn't completely sunken in yet that how close I came to death, but all I could feel is like this gratitude, this immense gratitude, and just this energetic high of just seeing things in such a new way, right? So when I go see my babies for the first time, I am just astonished. Two little beautiful beings that were just inside of my body just hours prior. So I go in there and I'm in pain, but that pain subsides when I see them. I hold them anyway. Yes, I have to have a pillow on my stomach because I have all of these staples. And as another funny side note, my nurse at the time, she's off to the side talking to the NICU nurses while I'm down visiting. And she's telling them the story of my harrowing tale, right? How my patient just survived so much. She lost 8 liters of blood in total. That's how much I lost, people. 8 liters of blood. And now to put that in realistic standards and just notion, I don't know how much the human body actually holds, but it's not 8 liters of blood, right? Now, I had additional blood in my body because I was pregnant. So that worked out for me. But let's just think about it for a moment. If you go to the store and buy 2 liters of some sort of beverage, that's how much blood I lost out of my body. I ended up in total having to have 2, what are they called? Transfusions. Yeah. So one was a huge one, obviously, in order to kind of keep me alive. And then the next one was just a little top off. You know, I think my white cell count or red cell count or whatever cell count was kind of low. So they were like, let's give you a little topper. And I said, don't mind if I do. Okay. So anywho, back to the story. Now, so the nurse is talking to the other nurses, and then she realized, holy crap, maybe I should go check on my patient because she's just been through all this stuff, right? And I'm going to speed this up for you a little bit because I don't want to drag this out because you've already been through the meat and potatoes of the moment, right? I ended up staying in the hospital, I believe about 13 days in total. And my babies were released, I want to say about 4 days after I was, right? I set a precedent because they had never even had a patient that was in there that long that had gone through such trauma that delivered babies, right? So they didn't even know what to do with me. They didn't know how do we handle parking? What do we do with this situation? Where do we put her? Do we put her in maternity? Do we put her in the regular ward? People were coming to see me. I felt like a unicorn / rock star. And maybe that's because I am, right? But now let's get to the healing translation, because this is a harrowing tale, right? And it's not a tale of fiction. This is my real life. This is what happened. This is what I lived through. Now, I'm sharing this traumatic story because we've all experienced trauma. Now, in this moment, every star had to align in order to keep me alive. Had I been pregnant with one baby, I would have never been in the OR. Now, does that mean that I would have never had the hemorrhage in the first place? Maybe. But if I had, then I wouldn't have made it, because they wouldn't have gotten me to the OR in time enough. So maybe my babies actually saved me, right? Now, the doctors didn't notice that I was hemorrhaging initially. Now, let's leave the legal talk to the side, shall we? Let's just focus on the actual situation and circumstance. They didn't notice, but you want to know which doctor did? The one who actually came and saw me because of my last name, my husband's last name being Nigerian. She paid a little bit extra attention. Now, again, I don't want to get into politics or anything like that, but the minority did recognize the minority in this situation. This is my story. Take what you will. The bottom line to this bottom line is everything literally happens for a reason. Now, in retrospect, of course, I was riding the high of life, and I was so excited to see everyone and everything, and I was so grateful. But yes, I did have a harsh down afterwards, wondering what was my purpose and all of those things. And I'll talk about that in a different podcast. But for now, let's just focus on the fact that we can go through anything and everything, and we can still survive. And not only survive, but if you look at my medical records, which I'm not giving you permission to, it has the phrase, a single phrase that I hang on to with tooth and nail: remarkable recovery. They had never seen someone come in there with the veracity that I have. The word that everyone used to describe me after that moment was strong or strength. Fun fact, I actually have a tattoo that means strength. Now, did I know at the time that I got the tattoo that I would go through something like this? Hell no. But I did, and here I am. So for you, know, trust, and believe that you can get through anything and everything, because guess what? You already have. Any situation and circumstance that is put on your plate has been put there because you are capable of overcoming it. But not only just overcoming it, you're capable of a remarkable recovery. So I'm just going to leave that there for you. And if this message resonates, then that means it is for you. And if not, that's cool too. Just keep it pushing. Either way, I thank you for listening, and I wish you the very, very best day ever. Until next time, you know the vibes. Peace. Oh, and by the way, don't forget to check me out on social media. I'm basically everywhere you probably shouldn't be. But when you look me up, just remember it's Marisa Moments, and that's Marisa with one S, because there's only one me. So until next time, happy healing. If this or any other story I've shared has resonated with you or helped you or inspired you in any way, shape, or form, I want you to comment. Let me know what you're doing, where you're at, or just throw a thumbs up down there, right? Just let's reach out to one another. Let's help each other. And please don't forget to follow and friend and all of those things so that you don't miss out on any messages, because across all of social media, the messages may vary because Spirit deals with me in different ways so that we can reach you in different ways as well. And don't forget to share with friends, because friends that heal help friends heal.